Hey everybody, it's Kate Richburg, and we are continuing our knotting week here at Beadshop.com. Today we're going to play around with the Carrick knot, which is a great flat knot that you can use for all kinds of applications here. So this is a pre-recorded broadcast for you guys, but feel free to leave comments. It'll be great to hear from you, but I hope you have a lot of fun with this knot. I did it. It's been a while since I've done this, and you've seen it perhaps before in a Free Tip Friday, but we wanted to get all of these knots into a compendium for you so you can find them very, very easily, access them easily. So you'll be able to find this on our YouTube channel in our Knots for Jewelry Making playlist over on the Beadshop YouTube, as well as they'll be listed in what we're calling the Knotpendium, which will be created over on our Beadshop website under Learning. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at what I've got going on here in front of me on my velvet pad here. You can see I've got my knots going already here, and I want to show you the samples that I've got here, and then we're going to jump into making the knot. So this is just the basic Carrick knot. It's also called a Carrick mat knot because sailors have made these with rope to, as like hot pads or table pads, but it's also great to apply it into your jewelry making. So this is the 3-strand one we're going to be working with today. Here's one that's slightly larger with a 2-strand, a double strand, so it's a little slightly airier like this. And then I did this 3-strand one utilizing our Beadshop.com cotton bolo cord, the woven cord. And I really love the way this looks since the cord has some really nice texture to it. You can also bundle these together, right? Lay one on top of the other, lay like a large whole bead or something on it, wrap it all up to create a pendant. I only have one of our smaller 30-millimeter discs, but you could get our larger 40 millimeters and layer this on top and then tie it as a pendant. You could also drop this below a disc like this, right? Attach some cord up here, use it as a pendant that way. So there's all kinds of ways that you can utilize these fun knots. I also like using them as earrings, in earrings, because they're so easy and light to wear. The only spot that this has been glued in, it all stays in place with the weaving. The only spot that it's glued in is where I've started and finished, and I do that at the end. If you're wearing these as earrings, they should stay pretty well, but you can also put a little drop of Zap glue under where the outside connections cross to make it a little more stable if you felt like you wanted to do that. Okay, so here is the beginning section that you're going to have to learn to make. Now, once you've got this section down, it's going to be pretty easy from there on out. What you're going to do is you're just going to keep following the twists and turns in this knot as many times as you want rotations in your finished piece, either 3 times here or 2 times here, or you could even do a single if you wanted to, but I think it's a little more stable when you make a couple of passes with the knot. So let's get to tying. Let me show you how to do this beginning portion. And once you learn how to do this, I would practice this a couple of times to make sure you get this down. And then I jump to the second part, which is weaving around in the knot. So essentially what you're going to do here is you're going to make 2 loops with your cord, full on loops. So here's the first loop I'm going to make. Let me clear this so it's not distracting. And then you're going to come in and you're going to make a second. Oops, you want it to go the other direction. There we go. You're going to make a second loop. Let me hold this correctly. Come around here. There we go. I want this tail pointing to my hand this way. That was my issue. And you want to make a second loop here. Okay, so let's do that again. This first loop, I'm right-handed, so this tail is pointing towards my right hand, and I come in and I make a second loop, and I place that loop on top of the first loop, and I'm going to lay it down here for you so you can see it. See how my crosses on the bottom of my loops are coming here and here. They're kind of going in opposite directions. But once you have this established right here, okay, now you're going to take that length that that long length that you've done here, and you're going to come in and you're going to weave over and under and over and under these these four strands that are coming up. So let's go over into over that first cord, under that second cord and out through the window, over that third cord and down through this last window, and under that last cord. So what you've got here is, when you arrange it, you've got your little pretzel kind of that looks like this. Okay, and you want to make sure that your cords are sometimes this last little cord, see how it's loose there and it's not loose here? Depending on how you make your loops, all you have to do is come in with this cord and flip it around and go under and over, and see how now that's locked in there. There you go, like so. Okay, so the two loops, I'm going to start that one more time. My loop coming over towards my right hand, and then a second loop. So I've got my two loops here. And then see how those two loops overlap. There's the first one. Here's the second one. There are the little crosses, so I just put my finger on it. And then I weave in those windows, over and under and over and under. That gives me that little pretzel. And again, my little guy was loose here, so I'm just going to tighten it up like so. So I'm ready to go. Okay, now at this point, you guys, we want to make sure, see how this one is pretty small and see how this is pretty big? You want to establish this size pretty much from the get-go. So if you want this to be a smaller piece, and let me measure this one for you here just so you can see from top to bottom. It's about 31.5 millimeters, maybe a little bit bigger. I'm squishing it just a little, maybe about 33 or so, thereabouts, a little over an inch. So what I want to do before I even go on to this next step, I want to come in and I want to pull these loops tighter anyway, to make this piece that I'm going to weave around a little bit smaller. See how that area still, though, is pretty large? So it takes a couple of passes for that to get maybe a little bit smaller. Then you just need to very carefully manipulate it down, walking it through. So you've got a pretzel that's a little bit smaller. See that there? It's almost the right size. I can manipulate it down even just a touch more. And when I do it in steps, I start to understand here. Whoops, that's going the opposite way. I start to understand here how the mechanics of this knot work. So there we have it. That looks good. And let's see I can even lay it on top and I can see, yep, that looks about right. Now I have this long tail, so I want to take up actually some of the tail here. So now that I've kind of established the size that I want, I'm going to pull that tail so it's kind of short and then walk this through the last time, finagle this knot down. But see how I'm very carefully going one loop at a time to walk it through. There we are. Okay. Now we want to have enough space here in order for our weaving to sit nicely and not too tight. So let me just open these up right here. And I can also adjust my knot a little bit as I go, but that looks like a nice start. And this size, I'll measure it for you. And don't be exact. Don't worry about it so much at this point because you can always take it in about 20 millimeters or so, right? Maybe a little bit more. So now let's go to the next steps. Now that we've established what I call this little pretzel, we're going to take this end, this working end, and we're going to come around and we're going to make this last loop here, right? So everything's symmetrical. So essentially I come around and I just follow the path now of this cord. So see how this one's coming out. So I match that and it goes under. And I want to go to the outside, not the inside. Okay. So see how it comes along the outside there. If you go along the inside, just switch it over. And then I go under. I'll pull that through. And then I want to make everything symmetrical again. So now I've got my 4 little clovers. And I'm just going to keep following, laying this cord around its predecessor. Okay, so see I'm coming to that junction where I'm going to weave under. So I come in with my cord, weave it. It's going along the outside, sitting there. You can see I'm coming around. I match it up. There it's going underneath. So I pull it, I push it under there. Good. Bring it around. And there it goes. It needs to be woven. So let's weave it. Stop and weave in and then out the window. Rotate it again. We're almost there. In the window. Under that cord, around. And here's our last bend. Just follow that path of that cord. Okay, so here's our second go around, and I could stop there with just 2. Something like this fits nicely on that 30 millimeter disc, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do one more pass for a round of 3, and then I'm going to show you how we'll glue it. We're going to use Zap glue for the gluing portion of this. Now it's hard to get these exactly, 2 exactly the same size. I might have made this one, see this one is going to be, well, no, it looks about right. Actually, I was worried I was making it too small, but nothing is set in stone with these until you actually glue them. You can kind of pull your cords, a little looser or a little tighter, just depending on what you like. Now again, this is the 1.5 millimeter leather cord that I'm using, but you could use surfer cord. You could use, like I use that cotton bolo cord that we carry. You could also practice if you have some, rat tail or rope or something like that at home. Doesn't really make too much difference. And I wouldn't worry about sizing your first one too much. See, I'm just following that path here. That's looking pretty good. Just go ahead and, tie a few. After you finish them off, even if they're not the same size, you'll find things to do with them. They're really, I think, a fun component to have if you need to kind of turn this over to find where this fits inside there. Open that up a little bit. I can see where it wants to go. I don't know why that one's giving me so much trouble. On your first try, I've been trying to make these obviously match the two that I made, but giving yourself a little more room when you weave this, the openings, to make them a little bit larger, like maybe like this one, your life might be a little bit easier. I'm complicating this for myself, but you can see it's going through pretty well. I'm almost done here. I'm on my last round. Okay, and so let me bring our friend that I made earlier. And this is just slightly, can you see it's slightly more compact? So what I'll do is I'm going to walk this cord back just a little. See how I pulled it back? It's this cord. I'm pulling it back there. And I'm saying, yep, that's about right. So I'm going to get a little more of that slack. Give myself just a little bit because that slack is going to be taken up as I walk it around, opening this knot up just a little as I bring it around here, making it just a little bit bigger. And it's good practice also if your knot is looking not quite as perfect as you might want it to be, to kind of seeing how you can adjust it just as it goes through. And you just have to walk these little legs, following them as you go along. You could use your knotting tweezers as well. But again, don't worry about it too much. As long as your knots are fairly symmetrical, you're not going to have to worry about it too much. This center one here is a little tight, see right there? So I want to figure out, I can get a little, I've got some extra cording here, so I can bring it here, and I'll give myself a little bit of that slack there. There we go. And there it is. See, it kind of gives a touch more room as I bring that around. There's that one. I could sit here and fiddle with this knot all day, but I think this is looking pretty good. Let me see. This one needs to come in just a little tighter. There we go. So now I'm ready to finish this last go round here. I'll bring this through. Alrighty. So let's take a look. That's pretty good, I think. I mean, close enough. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to, worry too much about getting these exactly the same, as long as visually they look pretty good and all of these little rows that I've made are equal. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this off. You can see I had that short little tail. I brought that extra down to give myself a little bit more room here. So I'm going to add some glue here and here along the back so that I have a nice closed up knot. I'm going to do this side first. Let me grab my zap and a toothpick here. Okay. And I'm going to come in. I'm using a little baggie to protect my velvet pad. I'm going to pull that little extra back. I'm going to put a line of zap, not a lot, just right where that cord is going to lie. See, the zap is right there. I'm going to push it down with my toothpick. And what I did to make sure that it set kind of quickly was I got one of my clampers and I just clamped it closed. Now I'm going to let that sit for just a minute or two. It doesn't take very long to, to kind of connect it in there once it's down. There we go. That looks good. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to give myself some more glue on this side to glue down the tying end. So let's do that. Bring it across right there. Put the lid on that zap. I use the zap because it's gel and it stays where I put it. And it's good for this leather. I wouldn't use GS Hypo because it doesn't grab. I want something that's going to grab onto this. So I'm going to get my clamper and see how now I'm going to clamp both of these. So that's going to hold there for just a moment. I'm going to just let that sit. And I didn't use a lot of glue. I don't want a bunch of glue seeping out or anything when I unclamp it. I don't want to glue the clamper to my knot there. So you can see here on this one, that connection is right here where I glued it on the back. On the front, you can't see it at all. And you can see as it gets a little bit bigger, this is a larger one. I don't know if you had something that you had to cap, like a giant bead or something, you can kind of manipulate this down. See, so it kind of curves down, but this also looks very nice as just a flat knot. And again, I can come in if I was using this as a pendant, I might add a little bit of extra glue there at that section, at this section underneath, pull this up, glue it here, so it's super stable, right? So, but it's pretty stable anyway. But once you kind of set it in stone, then you can add a little bit of glue there if you want. Now this should be ready to remove my extra cords there. There's a little bit of extra glue there that I'm going to get rid of. The glue hasn't quite set, but I want to go ahead and cut away my extra cords at this point, and then I'll let this sit and let the glue do its job. So I'll come in and I'm going to cut it just kind of bluntly across right there. I could use a little Sharpie marker to color that where the cord wasn't dyed on the inside. And I'll come here, wedge that in, give that a quick cut, and that's it. And then I can get my clamp back on there if I like. But this is ready to go. So now I've got two knots in here that are ready for earrings or whatever you want to work with them, whatever you want to do. But here are the variety of the Carrick mats. Let's make it look kind of pretty there. There we go. Some last looks there for you. But I hope you enjoy making these. They're a fast and fun way to use up some of the scraps of your leather. For this knot here, I would use probably, I don't know, almost a yard, probably. You want to have a length to weave in and out without having to weave with a tiny little piece of cord. So if you use some scraps that you have, go ahead and use some that might be a little bit longer. Measure them before you use them, which I should have done with this and I didn't. And then figure out how much you cut away. I cut, I don't know, it's about 5 inches or so away from my length. And then you can figure out what that length might be. But just so you have a little bit of extra, so you're not, trying to shove short little pieces of leather in there as you go. So that's it for Carrick's Bend, you guys. Carrick's Mat, it's also known. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're enjoying all of the knots that I'm tying this week for you. So this week, the week of April 18th, join me every day at 10:30 a.m. for a new pre-recorded knot session. And I can't wait to see what you make with these guys. Don't forget, you can find these on our YouTube channel under our playlist, Knots for Beaded Jewelry. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. And you can find all of the products and the project from today's broadcast right on our website. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter so you get notified when our live broadcasts run, as well as our new product and coupons and all kinds of good stuff. Best place to keep in touch with us is via that newsletter. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you next time for our next knot. See you soon.